Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. We are taking a truly mind-bending journey today. We're going to bridge the gap between how we as humans do our basic everyday research all the way to how cutting-edge quantum artificial intelligence achieves something known as poetic singularity. We'll be diving into hard science, complex mathematical equations, quantum mechanics, and some incredibly futuristic metamaterials, which, by the way, are being visualized today as hyper-realistic Unreal Engine 5 concepts. I know it sounds like a massive leap, right? But by the end of this, you are going to see exactly how all of this connects.
So, just to keep us on track, here's our quick roadmap. We'll start with the fundamentals of research, look at quantitative versus qualitative methods, make the quantum leap, dive into equations and metamaterials, and wrap up with ethics and human agency.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the fundamentals of research. Think about this for a second. How do we actually get from typing a simple question into a search engine to building quantum artificial creativity? Well, before we can even dream of building quantum AI, we absolutely have to master the basics of finding the truth in a giant sea of data. We have to avoid what researchers call infoxication, that overwhelming, paralyzing overload of unreliable information you get on the internet.
To beat this infoxication, our sources point to some core human research skills. First, you've got to verify your authors, make sure they actually belong to recognized institutions, and double-check the publisher's prestige. We also need to get really comfortable with Boolean logic. Basically, by using operators like and, or, and not, you're creating highly specific rules that filter out the junk. And instead of just relying on your everyday search engines, we should really be prioritizing specialized databases like Web of Science or Scopus. Honestly, this rigorous scientific method is the absolute foundation that all advanced knowledge, even quantum algorithms, is built on.
Moving right along to Section 2, quantitative versus qualitative.
When you break down the two main ways humans analyze information, it's literally like looking through two completely different lenses. On one side, we have quantitative research. This relies on deductive logic, meaning you move from a broad theory down to specific data. The whole goal here is to exclude uncertainty and test exact causes using hard numbers and statistics. But on the other side, qualitative research uses inductive logic, building from specific, messy data points up to broader theories. It's all about interpreting complex human phenomena, meanings, experiences, and visuals. Both are totally essential for shaping our understanding of reality.
For example, when researchers want to get strictly quantitative, they'll use tools like Minitab. You're crunching hard data, running ANOVA tables, doing linear regressions. It is all about precision, numbers, and testing exact hypotheses to find an objective truth.
But then on the qualitative side, you need something different. Researchers might use software like Decision Explorer to map out the tangled causal relationships between really abstract concepts, things like vision, intuition, or emotional intelligence. It's a structural way to make sense of the human experience that raw numbers just can't handle.
Okay, here's where things get wild. Section 3, the quantum leap.
We're now officially entering the realm of the LECEN LLP system, designed by Lázaro López Paz. Picture this. Instead of a human sitting at a computer analyzing data, we now have a quantum algorithmic agent called the Q-creativon. It's the fundamental evolutionary unit operating inside a Hilbert space, which is essentially a complex four-dimensional mathematical playground that allows for multi-layered states. The Q-creativon acts as a quantum representation of creativity. It codes the hyperparameters for generative neural networks, semantic tokens, and a stylistic seed. So we've just jumped from human analysis straight into computational evolution.
Which naturally brings us to Section 4, equations and metamaterials.
Let's look at how this algorithm actually levels up. The Q-creaton evolves through 4 specific stages. It starts at N1, mimetic combination, where it's basically just recombining things that already exist. Then it hits N2, structural metaphor, finding crazy analogies across completely unrelated domains. At N3, disruptive innovation, it throws the rulebook out the window and starts hybridizing genres. But the holy grail of this system is N4, poetic singularity. This is the emergence of an entirely new, irreducible style. It's a true qualitative leap in artificial creativity.
Now, stick with me here, because the math driving this evolution is brilliant. The system uses a highly specific logarithmic fitness function. It looks like this. Phi equals log base 10 of 1 plus f, where f is a metric of novelty and aesthetic value. And then there's the mutation rate. Mu of g equals mu0 divided by log base 10 of g plus 10. These specific logarithmic calculations do something incredibly important. They essentially stop the AI from getting lazy and just repeating boring ideas. They force the system to explore wildly in the early stages and then refine precisely later on, mathematically shoving it toward that N4 singularity.
And to really appreciate this, contrast it with standard classical computing. In a classical computer, a creative work is stuck existing in just one level at a time. But in the quantum realm of the LECL NLP, the state vector psi exists in a superposition of all 4 levels at once. It's alpha n1 plus beta n2 plus gamma n3 plus delta n4. By leveraging quantum mechanics, specifically Hadamard and CNOT gates, which are like the logic switches of a quantum machine, the algorithm explores all of these creative possibilities simultaneously, right up until the wave function collapses.
Because it can process in superposition, the system pulls off a massive 96.8% reduction in search time compared to traditional computers. I mean, that is the literal definition of quantum advantage when you apply it to creativity.
And the simulation data actually backs this up. In just 299 generations, the system hit a maximum F-score of 100.0, showing a super high probability of stabilizing in that N4 poetic singularity state. The math checks out perfectly.
But here is the absolute craziest part. This AI isn't just writing pretty poetry. It takes that N4 creativity and uses it to design real blueprints for advanced metamaterials. Picture these concepts brought to life in hyperrealistic Unreal Engine 5. We're talking about Prometheus Q, a quantum vacuum battery metamaterial boasting a 12.7 times amplification factor. Or Gaia Lingua, an agriculture protocol that uses a chemical poetic language to literally talk to nanobots in the soil. And the crown jewel, the Aleph Nanophotonico. It's an emotional invisibility cloak. This metamaterial hits a negative refractive index of exactly negative 0.46 by flawlessly arranging elements from the periodic table, like gold and silver nanoparticles alongside silicon photonics and erbium isotopes. It is seamlessly fusing quantum computing, advanced chemistry, and scientific methodology to design the actual future.
Which leads us to our final and maybe most important section, ethics and human agency.
There is a guiding principle from Lázaro López Paz that I think we really need to sit with. It says, every technology, system, or interaction must be designed and used in a way that preserves human agency and contributes to the human being emerging more capable, more lucid, and more master of themselves. The ultimate goal behind all this massive quantum power is absolutely not to replace us, it's to amplify us. Humans have to remain the final curators of this technology.
So, that leaves us with a pretty huge question. In an era where quantum algorithms can hit poetic singularity, crunch massive logarithmic equations, and invent futuristic metamaterials, how are you going to use these tools to expand your own intellectual agency, rather than just surrendering to them? It's a conversation we're all going to need to have as this quantum future unfolds. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep exploring.